Eerie cemeteries, ancient castles, dilapidated mansions from days long past. Some places send a shiver down our spines just by their very existence. It's often in those places where mysterious deaths once occurred, or these places are repeatedly haunted by inexplicable noises that literally make our hair stand on end. If you really want to convince yourself of the horror of such places, we have good news for you. There are countless places around the world that have always been entwined with demonic legends. Today, we'll take you on a strange journey of some of the most bizarre and creepy places in Germany that cannot be explained. But before we get started, be sure to hit that like button and ring the notification bell. Also, make sure you stick around until the end if you want to learn about one of the scariest places in the world that you will most likely want to visit. Geister House Fulingen. Heart-shattering wails in the night, enigmatic shadows on the walls, a feeling of oppressive anxiety. Anyone who's ever ventured a detour to the Geister House Fulingen later told of inexplicable events. But which lost souls could be up to mischief in the magnificent Cologne villa? Around 600 years before the stately mansion was built, the site was the scene of a gruesome battle. When two rulers rushed their troops here in the 13th century, more than 1,000 soldiers lost their lives. Many of the fallen were trampled beyond recognition by the panicked horses. During the Nazi era, the villa served as a camp for some Polish forced laborers. After rumors surfaced that one of the workers had become romantically involved with the squire's daughter, the irate father arranged for the 19-year-old's arrest, sealing his fate. A later inhabitant of the haunted house is said to have hanged himself there in the 1960s. Around the turn of the millennium, some young people ventured into the now long abandoned villa. There, the teenagers made another horrifying discovery. A few days earlier, a man had taken his own life there. Frankenstein Castle. Those of you who are familiar with Mary Shelley's horror classic Frankenstein could quickly get the idea that the castle of the same name near Darmstadt once served as a template for the British writer. However, it cannot be assumed that the beautiful building from the 13th century and Frankenstein's monster have more in common than the name. However, that doesn't mean the castle isn't haunted by some spooky legends. Some historical records suggest that the Ilvis mountain in the immediate vicinity of the fortifications was once one of the largest witch cult sites in Germany. In the 17th century, a certain Johann Conrad Dippel conducted various eerie alchemical experiments within the castle walls. In addition, the rumor has been circulating for centuries that another older castle complex once existed in the immediate vicinity of Frankenstein Castle. Both buildings are said to have been connected to each other via underground tunnels. A precious treasure of gold would also be slumbering in these corridors, which is said to remain hidden to this day. Zombie Hospital. The legends surrounding the Weissensee Children's Hospital in Berlin are simply unbelievable. If you believe these adventurous stories, the clinic, which opened in 1911, was once the victim of a zombie attack. The undead first killed the hospital staff and then ate the brains of the young patients. Compared to this gory horror story, the horror stories about the tormented souls of the children who once perished here and haunt the dilapidated building to this day seem almost harmless. While the probability of such a zombie apocalypse taking place within the last 100 years is very low, it's certainly not zero. While the stories surrounding the supposed haunting are highly debated, and most people write them off entirely, one thing is for sure: something creepy must have happened at this hospital for it to be filled with the restless souls of so many spirits. Hexatons Plots. The gruesome figures of devils and witches that adorn a plateau above the Bodetal in Saxony-Anhalt leave no doubt that the area in question looks back on a truly dark past. In fact, the area is better known as the Witches' Dance Floor because, according to legend, dark magicians used to gather here to celebrate their devilish festivals. In the past, the hook-nosed devil worshippers had to master an arduous ascent to the area, assuming they didn't have their flying broomsticks with them. Nowadays, curious visitors can easily take the cable car to the Hexatons Plots. Haunted Mansion. Sometimes the very appearance of a building gives us a clue that something supernatural might be lurking within. The dilapidated villa on the Burgberg in Verden, with its yard overgrown with plants and smashed windows, presents itself at first glance as a prime example of a spooky haunted house. The fact that many visitors repeatedly gain unauthorized access to the derelict creepy villa has long been an open secret in the city. It's mainly young people who want to prove their courage when visiting the terrifying manor house. The internet tells stories of daring people who've already set foot in the haunted mansion, showing that a good deal of courage is really required for the nocturnal trips into the haunted house. According to this, the users in the relevant forums talk about unexplained feelings of anxiety, devilish pentagrams on the walls, and even dead animals hanging from the ceiling on ropes. Therefore, quite a few people suspect that the ghost villa in Verden repeatedly becomes the scene of black masses. Reichstag. In April 1945, the Second World War was nearing its bloody end. The brutal battle for Berlin cost the lives of more than 170,000 soldiers and tens of thousands of civilians. After the Soviets finally managed to take the city, the once magnificent capital of the German Empire resembled a surreal heap of rubble. The Reichstag was also badly damaged during the relentless fighting. As is well known, however, the former building was to be completely rebuilt over time. Since 1999, the Reichstag building has served as the seat of the German Bundestag. Before that, however, it underwent a thorough restoration and transformation. As part of this work, however, those responsible decided to leave the insults that the Soviet troops had written on the walls during the war. Accordingly, the obscene slurs and threats against the Nazis still serve as a cautionary tale of history. If you believe some of the stories, these traces are not the only proverbial ghosts of the past that adorn the Reichstag to this day. Some people actually told of having seen the shadowy figures of soldiers here, which vanish completely into thin air within the blink of an eye. Michael's Chapel. Between the years 1400 and 1750, the basement of Michael's Chapel in Oppenheim served as a so-called ossuary. Consequently, the remains of more than 20,000 people were housed in the vaults below the church over a period of 350 years. The countless skulls and bones that are still in the building will send a shiver down the spine of even the most hardened observer. However, the gruesome crypt is no longer open to the public, but can only be viewed from the outside through a lattice. If you want to see the thousands upon thousands of bones for yourself, you can only do so as part of a special guided tour. Particularly bizarre is that in the middle of the gigantic pile of bones, there's a skull that is completely covered with gold. This is the remnant of a TV production that was simply left behind in the chapel after filming was completed. If you now think that this is simply a fake made for television, you're mistaken. The skull and crossbones are real. Nazi Temple. Weevilsburg Castle in North Rhine-Westphalia looks back on centuries of history. Count Friedrich von Arnsberg built an amazing castle at this location as early as 1123. After the original complex was destroyed in the following centuries, the Weevilsburg was completed there in 1609. During the Nazi regime, the building was converted into an SS castle and from then on served as the scene of many crude gatherings and rituals. Among other things, Heinrich Himmler's specifications stipulated that the death's head rings of the deceased SS ring bearers should be kept here. According to some reports from the local population, the ring collection, which contains thousands of pieces, was taken away by the American victors in 1945. Mystical powers were then reported to have lingered around the area. In fact, Himmler was adamant that after the German victory, the castle would become the spiritual center of the entire world. The members of the SS would subsequently fill the roles of occult priests. Fortunately, however, fate planned a different turn. Today, the castle houses a museum and a youth hostel. Haunted Forest. It seems as if a supernatural power resides in the haunted forest of Nynhagen. The countless, widely spaced trees on the Baltic Sea coast, with their bizarre shapes, seem like plants from a demonic world of shadows. While many people firmly believe that demons, spirits, and other mythical creatures roam among the branches and trunks, there's an earthly explanation for the forest's unusual shape. Accordingly, it's above all the damp, salty Baltic sea wind that shaped the shape of the oak, beech, and ash trees for many decades. Known as the Gespensterwald, this forest is filled with beautiful sights and sounds throughout the day. However, as night approaches, the forest appears far different. Many of the trees in this forest look as though they were taken from a twisted horror movie once the sun sets and night falls. Covering an area of more than 180 hectares, this forest is a mixture of beachfront property, densely packed trees, and even walking trails. Some of the trees in the forest are estimated to be more than 200 years old, allowing you to take a walk through some of the oldest foliage in the area. The salty air is really what sets this forest apart, however. Many experts believe that the air is very good for your health. However, others are more intimidated by the strange appearance of the forest, refusing to ever enter during twilight hours. An area known as the Ghost Forest is one of the most bizarre areas of this densely packed terrain. This is where people have claimed to hear disembodied voices, as well as apparitions late at night. Truth be told, no one has ever captured any undeniable footage of these supposed ghosts, but there are so many reports of strange activity that they simply cannot be ignored. By all means, it could simply be the flickering moonlight poking through the trees that makes so many people fear that they've seen a ghost. However, we can't be so sure. In reality, this truly could be one of the most haunted forests in the world. Hyacinth of Caesarea. Should you ever go to the Church of St. Mary in Fürstenfeldbruck, a truly disturbing sight will await you there. In fact, the church has housed the magnificently decorated bones of the Hyacinth of Caesarea for many centuries. Within the Roman Catholic Church, the dead man on display is considered an important martyr who died in the year 108 at the age of just 12. But what happened? At the time, the boy was denounced by the Romans for his Christian faith. When the Romans wanted to force the believer to renounce his religion, he refused, whereupon he was arrested and brutally tortured. He was only given meat that had been blessed by the Roman gods to eat. However, in Christianity, it was strictly forbidden to eat such food. So the Hyacinth of Caesarea remained unshakable in his faith and finally went into starvation of his own free will. According to legend, shortly before his death, the boy was comforted by angels and crowned with a golden headdress. Alright folks, now it's your turn. Would you dare to visit one of the spooky places mentioned in today's video? Or have you perhaps already been to one of these spooky places? Write your experiences, your thoughts, and your feedback on today's video in the comments. If you'd like to see more videos like this one and learn more about all the spooky and mystical things that can be found around our world, hit that subscribe button. We post new videos regularly. Also, be sure to hit that like button below and ring the notification bell so you can stay up to date with all of our future uploads.